The airport was busy. People were rushing. Announcements were loud. But in the middle of all that noise, a small black girl stood quietly. Her name was Maya. She was only 9 years old. She held a small pink bag in one hand and a stuffed bear in the other. She had big eyes, calm and clear, and wore a neat little blue dress. Her shoes were polished. Everything about her showed care. Someone had dressed her with love. She looked at her boarding pass carefully. Seat 3A, first class. A woman walked her to the gate and said, "Your daddy will be waiting at the next airport. Be brave." "Okay." Maya nodded. "I'll be fine." She stepped onto the plane with quiet confidence. She didn't look around much. She knew what to do. She had flown before. When she reached the front of the plane, she saw the big, soft seats. First class. A man in a suit was already sitting in 2A. He didn't notice her. Maya stood in front of seat 3A and smiled. This was hers. She gently placed her bag in the overhead bin and sat down. Her feet didn't touch the floor. She hugged her teddy bear. But then a voice came, sharp and cold. "Excuse me," said the flight attendant. A white woman, maybe in her 40s, with a tight smile and eyes that didn't smile at all. "You can't sit here." Maya looked up, confused. "But this is my seat." The attendant raised an eyebrow. "This is first class, sweetie. You probably have economy. Let me check your ticket." Maya held out her boarding pass politely. The woman took it, looked, and her face changed. A flash of something. Surprise, then annoyance. "This says 3A," the attendant said slowly, as if she couldn't believe it. "Yes, ma'am," Maya said softly. The man in 2A turned and stared. Another woman 2 rows back leaned out to watch. Whispers began. "Are you flying alone?" the attendant asked, now with doubt in her voice. "Yes. My daddy booked the seat," Maya answered. The attendant smiled, but not kindly. "Oh, and who's your daddy?" "The president." A few people laughed. Maya looked down. She didn't reply. The attendant sighed and walked away, but not before muttering, "This is ridiculous." Maya sat still. She didn't cry. She just hugged her teddy tighter. Her eyes stayed on the window. From a few rows back, a man in sunglasses lowered his magazine and watched. He said nothing, but his eyes followed the scene carefully. The plane filled up. Other passengers boarded. Some smiled at Maya. Some didn't look at her at all. The flight crew gathered at the front, whispering. One of them asked, "Is she really supposed to be here?" Another laughed. "She probably scanned someone else's pass." They didn't know Maya could hear, but she did. Still, she said nothing. Before takeoff, a different flight attendant, a younger one, came to check again. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Maya nodded. "Do you want anything?" Maya shook her head. Then she reached into her little bag and pulled out a folded note. It was from her father. In strong handwriting, it said, "If anyone makes you feel small, just remember who you are, and let them wait. Dad." Maya smiled a little and put the note back. The plane took off. But the story had just begun. What no one knew was that someone very important was already watching, and they were not happy with how Maya had been treated. The plane had taken off. The engines hummed gently as it climbed above the clouds. The seatbelt lights blinked off. Passengers settled in. Drinks were being served. Some watched movies, some read books. But Maya sat still in seat 3A, hugging her teddy bear. Her small feet still didn't reach the floor. She stared outside the window, calm on the outside, but holding in something heavy. Behind her, in the staff area near the front, the flight attendants were whispering again. "She really had a first-class ticket," one of them asked. "Yeah," said the first flight attendant, the one who had embarrassed Maya earlier. Her name was Carla. She sounded annoyed. "Maybe her daddy is rich or lucky. But I'm telling you, I've worked this route 10 years. I know the kind of people who fly first class." She's just a kid, another attendant said. Carla crossed her arms. Exactly. A kid who thinks this is normal. Someone needs to teach her how the world works. They all laughed quietly. But one flight attendant, a new one named Rosa, didn't laugh. She looked down the aisle at Maya, then frowned at Carla. Or maybe, she said softly, someone needs to teach us. Carla rolled her eyes. Whatever. Farther back in the cabin, a man in sunglasses, tall, quiet, in a suit, was still watching. He hadn't touched his drink. His phone buzzed. A short message appeared. She's in. All eyes open. He read it, then looked at Maya again. Nobody noticed. Not yet. Meanwhile, Maya sat silently, but her mind was not empty. She remembered what her dad had told her before the flight. There will be people who think you don't belong. Let them think. You don't need to fight. I'll handle the rest. She reached into her bag again and touched something. A metal card with a small golden emblem. It had a symbol she couldn't show anyone. She had promised. Rosa, the kind attendant, came by again. She knelt beside Maya. Would you like some juice? Maya nodded. Rosa leaned in closer. I'm sorry about what happened earlier. That shouldn't have happened. Maya looked up. It's okay. No, Rosa said gently. It's not. She gave Maya the juice, smiled, and walked away. But Rosa felt something strange. The crew had messed up, and she knew this little girl wasn't ordinary. In the cockpit, the pilot's radio crackled. A voice came through, calm but firm. Flight 761, he advised. VIP protocol may apply. Stand by for identity confirmation. The pilot blinked. What VIP? No answer, just silence. He looked at the co-pilot. Did you request clearance? No, sir. Then why are we getting VIP alerts mid-flight? Should we be concerned? The pilot looked back at the cabin door. Only if we've made someone very important very angry. In the back of the plane, the quiet man in sunglasses stood up. He walked toward first class slowly, scanning passengers. People looked at him. He looked like security, the kind that doesn't wear a badge. He stopped by Rosa. Can I help you? She asked. He showed her a small black ID. No name, just a seal. I need to speak with the girl in 3A. Rosa looked nervous. Why? He looked her in the eye. Because this flight just became government interest. Rosa led him to Maya. He knelt beside her and spoke softly. You doing okay, Maya? She smiled. Yes, sir. Good, he said. Your father is watching the flight. Everything's under control. Just stay calm. Maya nodded. He stood, gave a tiny nod to Rosa, and returned to his seat without saying another word. Up front, Carla watched. She didn't understand what she'd just seen. Who was that guy? She asked. Rosa looked at her and said quietly, the kind of person you don't want to upset. Carla scoffed. Please, this is just a spoiled kid. Suddenly, the plane shook, just like turbulence, but enough to make everyone pause. The intercom dinged. The captain's voice came through. Ladies and gentlemen, we may be passing through a mild storm. Please return to your seats and fasten seatbelts. But something else had happened. The cockpit had received another message, encrypted and urgent. It simply said, tell your crew to be respectful. My daughter is on board. MD. The pilot stood up from his seat. MD, Marcus Daniels. He whispered, no, it can't be. The co-pilot swallowed hard. Sir, is the General Marcus Daniels? The pilot didn't reply. He just looked out the front window and said, we're in trouble. Back in 3A, Maya took out her note again and read the last line. They don't know who you are. That's their mistake. She smiled. And somewhere, thousands of feet below, her father was already preparing to meet them. The clouds outside had turned darker. The soft blue sky was gone. Now it looked gray heavy and full of secrets. The plane moved smoothly at first, but the calm wouldn't last. In seat 3A, Maya was still quiet. She had finished her juice and was now drawing little hearts on a napkin. Her teddy bear sat on her lap, watching with her. Then, suddenly, the plane shook. Not a soft shake, a hard jolt. The overhead bins rattled. A baby cried. People looked around nervously. The pilot's voice came through the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, please stay seated. We're entering some unexpected turbulence." Seatbelt signs blinked. Flight attendants rushed up and down the aisle, telling people to stay calm. But in the front cabin, Carla, the flight attendant who had disrespected Maya earlier, looked annoyed. "She's bad luck," she whispered to another staff member, pointing toward Maya. "Ever since she got on this plane, everything's gone weird." The other staff member didn't reply. She was watching the clouds outside. They looked strange, too still in some places and too fast in others. Carla shook her head. "I don't care who her daddy is. She shouldn't be here." At that exact moment, a tray fell from someone's lap in business class. The turbulence came again, this time longer. The plane dipped down slightly. Screams echoed from the back. People held their seats tightly. A man's drink spilled on his shirt. Luggage shifted overhead. In the cockpit, the pilot's hands were tight on the controls. "Why didn't radar show this storm?" he asked. "I don't know, sir," the co-pilot said. "It's like it came out of nowhere." The radar screen blinked. Static, then clear, then static again. And then the radio spoke again. The same calm voice from earlier. "Flight 761, be advised. Your aircraft is being tracked. VIP passenger protocol still in effect. Secure the cabin. Maintain discipline. The father is watching." The pilot stared at the radio. He turned to his co-pilot. "He's not just watching. He's controlling this." "Sir," the co-pilot asked, confused. "I think we're not just flying a plane anymore. We're flying through someone else's test." In the first-class cabin, Maya reached into her bag again. She pulled out a silver coin, small, smooth, and heavy. It had the same seal as the card earlier, an eagle with stars above it. She didn't show it to anyone. She just held it. Rosa, the kind attendant, rushed down the aisle to check on Maya. "You okay, sweetheart?" Maya nodded. But Rosa could see something behind that calm face. Strength. A quiet kind of strength most children didn't have. Behind Rosa, Carla muttered, "That girl needs to be back in coach." Rosa turned sharply. "You need to stop." Carla rolled her eyes. "Why are you so scared of her? She's just a kid." Rosa lowered her voice. "She's not just anything." At that moment, the plane suddenly stabilized. The turbulence stopped. The clouds parted. Light returned through the windows. Everyone sighed in relief. But then, a soft beep came from the cockpit door. It wasn't normal. It was a special tone, one only heard when someone with rare access wanted to enter. The captain froze. Who could that be? Another beep. Then a small voice spoke behind them. "Captain," said Maya. She was standing just outside the cockpit. Carla had tried to stop her, but Maya had shown her the metal card. And the card had a clearance code. The door opened. The pilot turned and stood up straight. He looked at Maya. She didn't smile. She simply handed him a small folded piece of paper. He opened it. Read it. And immediately, his face changed. He stood taller, eyes sharp. "Ma'am," he said to Maya, "we received your father's instructions. Everything is in place." The co-pilot stood too. Maya looked at them both, then turned and walked back to her seat. Calm, quiet, like nothing had happened. Passengers who saw her walk out of the cockpit stared with wide eyes. Who was this child? Who had a card to open the cockpit mid-flight? In the flight staff area, Carla's face turned pale. "What did she just do?" Rosa looked at her. "I think she just reminded you who you were talking to." Carla sank into her jump seat, holding her face. Then, without warning, another beep echoed through the plane. It wasn't from the cockpit. It was from Carla's radio. She looked down. A new message blinked on the small screen. Flight Attendant Carla J. Your behavior is under review. Final report will be delivered at landing. MD. Carla's hand began to shake. MD, it's him, she whispered. Rosa nodded. Yes. And he's not happy. Far below the clouds, on a secure military base, General Marcus Daniels watched a screen. Beside him, a man in uniform said, "All systems show stable." Her card was accepted. The pilot followed orders. Daniels nodded slowly. "Let them see how they treat people when they think no one's watching," he said. "Then we'll show them who's really watching." He turned to a large monitor. Maya's face on the screen, sitting in seat 3A, quietly sketching on her napkin again. "She passed the test," he said. "Now let's see if they can." The plane was calm again. The seatbelt lights had turned off. The sky outside looked peaceful now, as if the storm had never come. But inside the plane, the storm wasn't over. Passengers whispered about what they had just seen, the little girl who entered the cockpit and walked out like a commander. Some thought she was just lucky. Others were scared to even guess. But Carla, the flight attendant who had insulted Maya, felt something she hadn't felt in years. Fear. The message on her radio was still blinking. Your behavior is under review. Final report will be delivered at landing. MD. She asked herself over and over, who is MD? What kind of man had power over pilots, radar, and air traffic control? What kind of father gives a child access to the cockpit? But soon, Carla wouldn't have to wonder. She was about to find out. In seat 3A, Maya looked out the window again. Her teddy bear sat beside her, still watching with button eyes. She was quiet, but inside, she knew everything was working exactly how her father planned. Across the aisle, the man in sunglasses, the one who had shown the strange black ID, spoke into his collar mic. Phase 2 complete, waiting for activation of voice. He paused, then looked straight at Carla. She won't forget this flight. Back in the cockpit, the pilot received another message, this time audio. He pressed the headphones to his ear and listened. As soon as he heard the voice, his hand froze on the controls. Then he stood up. He turned on the cabin intercom and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. We have just received an incoming message from Ground Command. You are about to hear a transmission. For those unfamiliar, this is a voice heard only in military crisis situations, national emergencies, or top-level clearance meetings. We are playing it because he requested it be heard by everyone on board." Passengers sat up straight. Some took off their headphones. Others stopped talking. Even the crying baby stopped. Then the voice began. Deep, calm, unshakable. "This is General Marcus Daniels. I am speaking not as a soldier today, but as a father." Carla's eyes widened. Her mouth dropped open. The color left her face. The voice continued. "My daughter, Maya, is traveling on this flight. She is calm. She is respectful. She carries herself with quiet dignity. She has done nothing wrong. And yet she was judged, looked down upon. Not for her actions, not for her words, but for the color of her skin." The cabin was silent. The voice went on. "Let this be clear. I do not use my rank for personal favors, but today I use it for justice." Carla shook her head. "No, this can't be happening." The voice grew firmer. To the flight attendant who mocked her, "You showed your heart, and the world is watching now." Suddenly, everyone on the plane looked at Carla. Passengers whispered. Some pulled out their phones. Others just stared. The spotlight was now on her, and there was no place to hide. Carla stood frozen, unable to speak. The voice continued. "I trained warriors. I led missions into enemy land. But nothing prepares a man for the pain of seeing his child disrespected. Maya is not just my daughter. She is my legacy. Then, the voice softened. To those who showed her kindness today, thank you. You may not wear uniforms, but today you served. Rosa, standing near the cabin wall, covered her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. Maya smiled softly at her, and then the final words came. When this plane lands, I will be there. Not to shout, not to threaten, but to remind the world. Our children deserve respect, whether or not you know who their father is. Then the voice ended. The intercom went quiet. No one moved. No one breathed. For the next few minutes, the only sound was the soft hum of the engines. Then, slowly, people started to clap. One by one, hands came together. It wasn't loud. It was deep. It was real. And Maya, she didn't clap. She just looked ahead, her small hands folded in her lap. Because deep inside she knew. The world had just changed. The plane began to descend. The captain's voice returned, softer this time. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now preparing to land. Please fasten your seatbelts. Flight staff, prepare the cabin. But no one moved much. Their hearts were still beating fast from what they had heard. The words of General Marcus Daniels still echoed in their ears. When this plane lands, I will be there. Maya sat quietly in seat 3A. Her eyes were calm. Her little hand rested on her teddy bear's head. She wasn't nervous, not like the others. Across the aisle, passengers whispered, "Do you think that was real? Was that really a general? What's going to happen at the airport?" Even the man in the suit who had been rude earlier now looked down in shame. He hadn't said anything cruel, but he didn't stop Carla either. That made him part of it, and he knew it. Carla, on the other hand, looked like she was sitting in a courtroom. Her eyes were wide. Her hands shook. She tried fixing her hair, straightening her uniform, anything to feel normal again. But nothing could help now. Rosa, the kind flight attendant, was checking seatbelts in the last rows. She moved slowly, her thoughts heavy. She had seen bad things before. She had seen people treated unfairly. But today, she had seen something rare. A child who stayed kind, even when the world was not kind to her. And a father whose voice made the skies stop. In the cockpit, the pilot wiped sweat from his forehead. "Tower confirms," he told the co-pilot. "They've cleared a special runway for us. We're not landing like a regular flight." "Why not?" The pilot turned the radio so his co-pilot could hear. A voice from the tower said, "Flight 761, be advised. You have military presence on the ground. General Marcus Daniels is on site. Repeat, General Daniels is at the terminal, flanked by his command unit. You are to follow direct escort orders upon arrival." The co-pilot's hands began to tremble. "This is real." The pilot nodded slowly. "Very real." The wheels touched the ground. A soft thud. The plane rolled along the runway slowly. Then it stopped. But it didn't pull up to a normal gate. Instead, 2 black SUVs and a military truck waited beside the tarmac. Behind them, armed guards in clean uniforms stood in a perfect line. Passengers stared out the windows. Phones came up. Cameras rolled. What is this? Who are those people? And then they saw him. A tall man, wearing no suit, no medals, just a simple olive green jacket with one name stitched into it. Daniels. The door opened. The pilot stood at the entrance of the aircraft, his hands behind his back. One of the military officers stepped in first. He saluted the pilot. "General Daniels requests permission to board." The pilot nodded. "Yes, sir." "Granted." Footsteps followed. Heavy boots. Sharp movements. And then, finally, he appeared. General Marcus Daniels. Eyes sharp. Shoulders straight. And yet, there was a softness behind that power. He stepped into the plane, and it felt like the air changed. Passengers went silent. No one said a word. Carla stood up quickly. She tried to smile. "Sir, I didn't know woe." He raised his hand gently, not to scold her, not to silence her, just to show. This is not about power. This is about principle. He walked down the aisle. Slow, purposeful. Then he stopped, right in front of seat 3A. Maya looked up at him. Her eyes didn't water. Her face didn't change. But the moment he opened his arms, she stood and walked into them without a word. He held her for a long time. No words, just truth. Then he knelt down to her level, held her face gently, and said, "You were strong. You were kind. And you never forgot who you are. I am proud of you." Then he stood up, turned to the passengers, and spoke just once. "You didn't know who she was, but next time, treat every child like they matter. Because they do." He didn't wait for applause. He didn't need it. He simply turned, took Maya's hand, and began walking off the plane. The soldiers followed. The doors closed behind them. Inside the plane, silence. Then someone whispered, "That wasn't just a landing." Another voice replied, "No, that was a lesson." Outside, Maya climbed into the black SUV, her teddy bear still in her lap. She looked back once, not to gloat, not to brag, just to remember that even in a world that forgets your worth, you can remind it without ever raising your voice. By the time the plane doors closed, the internet had already started buzzing. A teenager in row 14 had uploaded a 60-second video titled, "A general just walked onto our plane because of a little girl." The video was shaky, but the sound was clear. It showed Maya, holding her teddy bear, sitting quietly. Then it showed the general, tall and calm, walking down the aisle and kneeling beside her. It captured his voice. "You were strong. You were kind. And you never forgot who you are." And finally, it captured his message to everyone. Next time, treat every child like they matter. Because they do. By the time Maya's SUV pulled away from the airport, the video had been shared over 100,000 times. People across the world watched with wide eyes. Some cried. Some were angry. But most felt something deep in their hearts, a truth that couldn't be ignored anymore. A girl had been judged, not because of her actions, but because of her color. And her father, without raising his voice or starting a fight, reminded everyone what real power looks like. News channels picked up the story within hours. A headline on the biggest morning show read, "The general, the girl, and the flight that changed everything." Comment sections exploded. People argued. But one comment stood out the most. It was from a pilot who wasn't even on the flight. "That little girl reminded me of my daughter. She didn't scream. She didn't complain. She just showed quiet strength. And her father, he didn't come to hurt anyone. He came to teach us." I salute him. Back at the airline office, chaos was unfolding. The CEO of the airline had been woken up in the middle of the night. He was not happy. He slammed his fist on the table as he watched the video play again. "Is this how we treat passengers now? Children?" His assistant nodded nervously. "And the general?" the CEO asked. "Marcus Daniels, sir," the assistant replied. "Highest-ranking strategic officer in the Defense Command. Served in 5 countries. He's led rescue missions, humanitarian operations. He's a national figure now." The CEO's face turned pale. "Fire the flight attendant. Issue an apology. Full investigation. Now." Meanwhile, Carla sat alone in the crew lounge at the airport. Her phone buzzed every minute. She didn't even want to look anymore. Messages, comments, news articles. People from around the world were calling her heartless, rude, and unfit to serve. She watched the video again and again, hoping it looked different this time. But it didn't. It only got worse. Rosa, the kind flight attendant, was sitting nearby. She said nothing. She just looked at Carla for a moment, then said, "You didn't just disrespect a child. You disrespected kindness." And the world saw it. Then she stood and walked away. Across town, Maya was back home. She sat on the couch beside her dad. The TV was showing clips of her on the flight. "Do you want me to turn it off?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "I'm okay." "Are you scared?" he asked. She looked up at him. "No, I think they finally see me." Later that evening, the doorbell rang. A young boy from the neighborhood stood outside, holding a handmade card. It said, "To Maya, you are stronger than most adults. My sister watched your video and said she wants to be just like you. Thank you." Maya smiled. She didn't say much. She just said, "Thank you," and gave him a high five. That night, as the stars shone through her bedroom window, Maya held her teddy bear tight. She whispered, "They didn't know who I was. But now, maybe they'll think before hurting someone else." She closed her eyes. She had no idea what was coming next, because tomorrow, the whole country would be talking. And a bigger surprise was waiting at her door. The sun rose quietly the next morning. Maya sat at the kitchen table with her cereal. Her teddy bear was in the seat next to her, like always. Her dad, General Marcus Daniels, stood by the window. He had already read 3 newspapers. All of them had Maya's photo on the front page. One headline said, "The little girl who silenced a plane and woke up a nation." Another read, "One child, one voice, one message. Respect is for everyone." He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He just watched her, his daughter, calmly eating breakfast like nothing had happened. But everything had happened. And the world was still watching. Around 10 a.m., the doorbell rang. Maya opened the door. Standing there was a woman in a sharp black suit. She wore sunglasses and held a white envelope in her hand. "Good morning," she said gently. "I'm from the office of the president." Maya blinked. "The president?" she asked. "Yes," the woman said. "He saw your story, and he asked me to deliver this, personally." She handed Maya the envelope and gave a respectful nod to General Daniels, who had come to the door. Then she walked away, leaving the two of them in silence. Inside, Maya carefully opened the envelope. It had the official seal on it, the golden eagle, the American flag behind it. Inside was a letter, handwritten. Her father read it aloud. "Dear Maya, I watched what happened on that plane. I saw how you stayed calm. I saw how you never raised your voice, even when others didn't treat you right. That is strength. In my office, I meet world leaders. I speak to generals, kings, and scientists. But today, I want to speak to you. Because what you did, the quiet strength you showed, is something this country needs. That's why I would like to invite you and your father to the White House. I want to thank you in person, and I want the world to see what respect really looks like." With deep admiration, the President of the United States. Maya didn't know what to say. She looked at her dad, who for once didn't have any words either. He smiled and hugged her tight. "You didn't ask for this," he said softly, "but you earned it." A week later, Maya and her father walked into the White House. She wore a simple yellow dress. Her teddy bear was still with her. The halls were huge. The ceilings were high. The flag stood proud. When they entered the press room, dozens of cameras were waiting, and standing at the podium was the president himself. He smiled as Maya walked up. The crowd stood, and for the first time in history, the president said, "Before I speak, I want to give the stage to someone who reminded us that courage doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it just needs to be true. Maya, would you like to say a few words?" Maya took the microphone. She didn't read from a paper. She just looked around the room and said, "I didn't mean to make a big story. I just wanted to sit in my seat. I just wanted to fly like everyone else. But when they didn't treat me right, I remembered what my dad always tells me. Know who you are. And don't let the world make you forget it. I hope next time, people remember that being different doesn't mean being less. The room was quiet. Then, applause. Real applause. From everyone. After the event, Maya got to visit the Oval Office. She took pictures. She sat in the president's chair, just for a moment. Her teddy bear sat on the desk, smiling in every photo. As the car drove her back home that evening, Maya looked out the window. Cities passed by. People waved. Her name was now known in millions of homes. But she didn't want fame. She didn't want to be a hero. She just wanted to remind people of something simple. Every person matters. Even the quiet ones. Even the small ones. Even the ones you didn't expect.